Right guys, just a quick video there for the homework. So this was questions 4 to 7. Obviously questions 4 5 are already done, so you have them from the last day, and I just said I'd talk you through question 6 and question 7 just to make sure that everyone's okay with them. So if we start off there by looking at question 6 part 1, we've got k equals a over b minus 2. Okay, so k equals a over b minus 2, and we know we need to make a the subject. Okay, so anytime we need to make a the subject, we need to isolate the a terms. So that means we need to get rid of everything else that's not associated with this a. Okay, so we can see here this negative 2 is attached, so we need to get rid of it. How we get rid of it is we bring it to the other side, and it turns from a negative 2 to a positive 2. We know that we need to make a the subject. So in order to make a the subject, we need to have a equals in our final answer. So let's bring our a terms over to the left hand side and bring all the other terms over to the right hand side. They just swap places. Okay. The next thing we need to look at is getting rid of this fraction. So anytime we're dealing with a fraction, we don't like having fractions because it makes things more awkward. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of the fraction, and we do that just by multiplying both sides by the denominator. If we multiply the left hand side by b, we're left with just a. But because we multiply the left hand side by b, we have to multiply the right hand side by b. So you can see that there. If we were to expand this, we'd get b multiplied by k is bk, and b multiplied by 2 is 2b. For part 2, v is the subject, or to make v the subject. So s is equal to u over v plus 10. So again, we start off, we look at what we need to make the subject, which is v in this case. So we need to look at these terms here. We need to get rid of anything that's attached to that. So we can see here this plus 10 is attached to it, so we need to get rid of it. So we bring it to the far side and it becomes a negative. Now, we know that our answer is going to have to be v equals, so we need to get all our v terms on the left-hand side and all our other terms on the right-hand side. We can do that simply here by getting rid of the fraction and multiplying the left-hand side by v. So we get v multiplied by s minus 10 equals u. In order to get v by itself, we look at it here, v has been multiplied by s minus 10. So in order to get rid of the s minus 10, we divide both sides by s minus 10. If we divide the left-hand side by s minus 10, we're left with just v. But we have to do the same on the right-hand side and divide u by s minus 10. Next, we're looking at 7 part 1. So it says c is equal to a over 2 minus 4b. And here we know we need to make a the subject. So we look at what we have. We need to make a the subject. So we start off and just tidy it up. So we can see here, if we need a equals, we need to get rid of anything that's attached to a. And in this case, we've got this negative 4b. So if we bring that to the far side, it turns into a positive 4b. Okay. Now, we know from this question that we need to make a the subject. So in order to make a the subject, we need a equals in our final answer. So we're going to flip this around. So we get a over 2 equals c plus 4b. Okay. Now, next thing we need to do is we need to get rid of that fraction. We want a equals by itself. So in order to get a by itself, we just need to get rid of the denominator there. And we can do that simply by multiplying everything on the left-hand side by 2. Gets rid of the denominator. So we need to multiply everything on the right-hand side by 2. And we get 2 times whatever's there, which is c plus 4b. Last step there is just to expand the brackets, and 2 times c is 2c, 2 times 4b is 8b. Part 2. In part 2, we had 2 times a minus 2b equals 3c. And we need to make a the subject. So we can see there a is in the middle. So first thing we need to do is we need to expand this here, and then we need to isolate the a terms. So 2 times a gives us 2a, 2 times negative 2b gives us negative 4b, equals, and we've got our 3c. We now need to look at what we're looking to isolate. We're looking to isolate the a's. So we need to remove anything that's not, that's attached to that a, you could say. So this 2a here stays the same. This negative 4b has to come to the right-hand side, and it'll turn into a positive 4b. So it changes from a negative to a positive. In order to get the a's by themselves, we need to divide the left-hand side here by 2. If we divide the left-hand side by 2, we'd be left with 8. But we need to do the same on the right-hand side, and we take all this here, and we divide it by 2. Now we have part 3. Part 3 looks very complicated because you've got 2 different fractions at either side of the equal sign, but it's easy to tie them up. So First thing we need to do is we need to look at the question and see what we need to make the subject. And in this case, we need to make x the subject. So our final line should read x equals whatever. So in order to get the x terms by themselves, we need to isolate the x terms by bringing this negative 1 over 3 here to the right hand side, and it turns into a positive 1 over 3. So there you have it. Now, next thing we need to do is we need to look at what we have. We've got 2x equals y over 3 plus 1 over 3. We know from fractions, if we've got the same denominator, we can put them as a single fraction. So we can put the y plus 1 all over 3. So we've got y plus 1 all over 3. That makes things quite easy for us. So we go back then and we look at what we have. We've got 2x equals y plus 1 over 3. What we need is we don't need 2x, we need 1x. So what we need to do here is we need to divide the left-hand side by 2. And we know whatever we do on the left-hand side, we have to do on the right-hand side. Okay, so this here stays the same, but we need to divide it by 2. Now, dividing something by 2, if you look at the note here on the right-hand side, dividing something by 2 is the same as multiplying it by a half. So for instance, if you took the number 8 and you divided it by 2, you get 4. If you took the number 8 and you multiplied it by a half, you get 8 times 1, which is 8, all over 2. 8 over 2 gives you 4. Similarly, 12 divided by 2 equals 6. 12 multiplied by a half is 12, multiplied by 1, which is 12, all over 2. 12 over 2 will give us 6. And similarly here, just so you can see, 15 divided by 3 is the same as multiplying by a third. It's just to show you that it's not just halves that work. If you're multiplying by 1, if you're dividing by 3, it's the same as multiplying by 1 over 3. So 15 divided by 3 gives you 5. 15 multiplied by 1 over 3 will also give you 5. Because 15 times 1 is 15. Divide that by 3 and you get 5. So you can see what we did there. We took our fraction here and we divided it by 2, which like I said is the same as multiplying it by a half. 2y plus 1 multiplied by 1 gives us y plus 1. Or should I say y plus 1 multiplied by 1. Y plus 1 multiplied by 1 gives us y plus 1. And 3 multiplied by 2 gives you 6. That brings us on there to part 4. Okay, so we've got 5 times b minus 3 equals a over 2, and they want b to be the subject. So we can see there b's in the middle of an operation there, multiplication, so we need to sort that out first. So 5 times b gives us 5b, 5 times negative 3 gives us negative 15. So that's just expanding brackets. Okay, equals, and we still have our fraction on the right hand side. We go back there and have a look and see what we need to do. And you can see here that we need to isolate the b terms. So from here, you can clearly see that we need to get the b's by themselves. But obviously, this fraction here makes things extra complicated. Anytime we have a fraction, we always try and get rid of it. And we know ourselves that the easy way to remove a fraction is to multiply everything by the denominator. So when we have an equation with a fraction involved, it's easy to get rid of the fraction just by multiplying everything by the denominator. So in this case, if we multiply 5b minus 15 by 2, it gets rid of the denominator here. So multiply all this here by 2, and it equals a. Because if we multiply the right-hand side by 2, we're left with just a. So we have to do the same on the left-hand side and multiply all this here by 2. We now need to expand. So 2 times 5b gives us 10b. 2 times negative 15 gives us negative 30. Equals, and we have our a there on the right-hand side. Again, we're trying to get b by itself, so we need to isolate the b terms, and that just means we need to get rid of everything that's attached to it. So we need to take this negative 30 and bring it to the far side, and when we do that, we're left with 10b on the left-hand side, equals, a, and we've got our negative 30, which turns into our positive 30. The last line there is just to get 1b by itself, so we need to divide the left-hand side by 10, and that leaves us with b. Because we divide the left-hand side by 10, we have to also divide the right-hand side by 10, so we just take this here and we divide it by 10. So this brings us on to the final two questions. So we start off there with question 5. X is equal to y minus 2z all over 3. Okay, and we need to make z the subject. Again, like I said earlier, when we fractions, we always get rid of the fractions, and it's easy to do that by just multiplying by the denominator. So we multiply the left-hand side by the denominator and we get 3x. If we multiply the right-hand side by 3, we'd be left with just y minus 2z, which is the numerator. Y minus 2z. Okay, they want to make z the subject, so we need to get all the z's to the right hand side. So bring that negative 2z to the right hand side, and it turns into a positive 2z. Your y stays where it is. Your 3x comes from the left hand side over to the right hand side, and it turns from a positive 3x to a negative 3x. We now have a linear equation with 2z equals y minus 3x. In order to get z by itself, we divide the left hand side by 2 and we're left with just z. If we divide the right hand side by 2, we'll get y minus 3x all divided by 2. So that one there was actually a little bit more straightforward. For part 6, we've got a equals b over 2 minus 3c over 4. Okay, and they want us to make b the subject. Now, in this case, similar to like I said earlier, anytime you have fractions, you try and get rid of the fractions because fractions just make things more difficult than they need to be. So in this case, we'd know from what we did prior to this with algebraic fractions, we can get rid of the fractions by getting the same denominator by scaling this fraction up. So if we get 4 as the denominator for both, then we can pull them together and make a single fraction. So in order to turn this denominator into 4, I had to multiply the denominator there by 2. If I multiply the denominator by 2, I have to do the same to the numerator and multiply b by 2, which gives me 2b. So all I've done is scale this fraction up by multiplying the top and the bottom by 2. Okay? And we know we can do that because you can scale fractions up and down by multiplying them by a number. Okay, a is equal to 2b divided by 4 minus 3c divided by 4. Because we have the same denominator, we can now pull them together to make a single fraction, which is 2b minus 3c, all divided by 4. In this case, like I said earlier, anytime you have a fraction, you try and get rid of the fraction by multiplying across by the denominator. So we're going to multiply across by 4 and we'll be left with 4a equals the numerator, which was 2b minus 3c. We now need to get b by itself. So in order to get the b's by themselves, we look at where we have the b's, which is here, and we can see what's attached to it, which is a negative 3c. So in order to get rid of that, we bring that negative 3c to the far side and we get a positive 3c. So 4a plus 3c equals 2b. Because we need to make b equals, we just swap around our equation and we put 3b equals 4a plus 3c. So 4a plus 3c. The last step then is to get 1b by itself. So we just divide the left hand side by 2 to get 1b. And we do the exact same on the right hand side and we take the 4a plus 3c and we divide it by 2. I hope that makes the corrections that little bit easier. But again, we can refer to them in class when I come back the next day.